Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation. The first thing I would probably mention is that this is by no means a technical presentation. The main idea of this presentation today is to introduce the project and mainly to try and find partners among the students who can actually join us in the project and do some activities with us as well. Sanchit already introduced me quite well. I won't go into the details. Just to mention, Professor Chowdhury, he's also the PI from the Indian side, from IIT Indore. I'm the PI, the principal investigator from the UK side. So we are both PIs, but just from different universities. And the other thing to be aware is that I'm actually presenting on behalf of our different partners, clearly one of them being IIT Indore, but we also have companies on board, Concrete4Change, which is a company, I'll expand a bit more on it, but they are working basically on mineralization of concrete, Abhishek Bricks in India, and JSW Cement in India as well. The title of our project is this one here, Sustainable Building Products for Net Zero in Construction from Lab to Market. And our main funder is the British Council. And basically today, what we're going to do is the official call for projects for you to join the project as well. Just to give you an idea, a bit of the background to why we have this project and why we're trying to do what we are doing. I don't know if you're aware, but the construction and building industry emits almost 40% of the world's CO2. That's a lot. And that includes both embodied and operational carbon. The other thing to keep in mind is that both the UK and India, we have pledged to reach net zero, the UK by 2050 and India by 27. And of course, this figure here, 57%, has to come down. Just to give you an idea of what's happening on the UK side, what I have in these plots is essentially time on the horizontal axis, basically pointing towards 2050. Then on the vertical axis, we have the emissions, the CO2 emissions coming from construction. At the top, we have the operational CO2, which is basically the heating in the UK or the AC in India, and how that's coming down, and the plan is to bring it down as much as possible by 2033, 2037. So this one, we can more or less bring it down with the technologies we have, energy efficiency, phase out of fossil fuel, and so on. But this one here at the bottom, this one that looks greenish, grayish, that's essentially the construction CO2. So this is coming from concrete, steel, bricks, and so on. And as you can see, that one is harder to bring down. Obviously here the idea is to bring it down almost to zero by 2050, but you can see the drop is much less gradual compared to this one that drops relatively quickly. So there is a challenge there that we basically need to bring down this CO2 here as quickly as possible. Now, what we identified is that in general terms, the industry is still a bit sluggish with the green transition. And this is much to do with the scarce workforce with expertise in green materials. And again, much of this is also related to the lack of training and education on the subject. At least in many programs in many universities here in the UK, the green materials are not heavily taught. Probably it's the same in India. That's something we also need to find out. But there is definitely room for improvement in that area. And therefore, what we're trying to do with this project is to develop a joint academic/industry training program and a mentoring scheme for you guys to speed up net zero in construction. Initially, the focus is on IIT Indore, but we're hoping to make this a bigger initiative and eventually extend it to other institutions in India and also the UK. And really the final goal, what we are expecting is that that's basically the learners, your employability will be enhanced by upskilling your skills via the mentoring scheme and a series of mini projects that you can lead together with us, world experts in the field. In a nutshell, this is a mentoring team. I won't go into the details of every one of us because on the website, I'll show you in a minute. We already have the details there. But just to give you an idea, this is essentially me. Then we also have Professor Shuye Geng. She's an expert in fiber reinforced concrete. She's actually working in the Lightspeed rail in Coventry, where the University of Warwick is, trying to produce the slabs for the train there. Dr. Sid Purfala, he's the CEO of Concrete4Change. The company actually changed the name just literally 2 weeks ago to Batteries Limited because Holcim now put some money into the company, so they are actually partnering with them. I think it's going to become a big company actually in the coming years. That's essentially from the UK side. From the IIT Indore side and Indian side, we have Professor Sandeep Chowdhury. He's, as I said, the PI at Indore, and you probably know him better than I do. He does everything in the world of concrete. We also have Dr. Pavan Kumar Kankar. He's a co-I as well in the project. Dr. Ashita Singh Sanchit, who is also present in the presentation, Sanchit Gupta. And then the companies in India, we have two companies on board, one of them being Abhishek Bricks through Mr. Abhishek Purohit. And then we also have JSW Cement, represented by Dr. Jackpandu Kole. And all of us essentially are going to serve as mentors in the project. I'll tell you more about it in a minute. And on this slide, I'm trying to show a bit of the activities of the project itself. The idea of this project, as I said, is basically to develop this training program. But obviously, we need to launch the program first, and that's the main idea of today's presentation. I'm aware you already had workshops and activities during the day, but basically today what I'll try to give you is an overview of the project and how you can get into the project as well. As part of the project, we are going to develop a program. This is going to be through a series of pre-recorded webinars by different partners, and this is going to happen during the month of May, so essentially next month. And we have a series of presentations, about 7 presentations by different mentors. These are tentative titles. The final titles will be distributed eventually. But basically, we're trying to look at sustainable construction, CO2, concrete mineralization. This is essentially the area of expertise of Concrete4Change. Recycled concrete, which is what I've been working on in the last few years. Waste in construction, Professor Geng is working on that, on fiber reinforced concretes as well. Net zero cements, net zero products. Essentially, this is coming from industry mainly, as you can see, based on the surnames. And then the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on in net zero construction. So that's going to be probably towards the end of the online training program. Now, just to give you an idea of how this is going to work, as I said before, we're going to release the series of webinars during May. And then towards the end of May, and I'll tell you the timelines in another slide, we have essentially 2 stages. In stage 1, the idea is for you to work on mini projects on net zero challenges, either that we can give you or some of you can actually propose your own projects. We'll give you the opportunity also to do some pilot tests to prove the concept or the idea you have in mind. That's going to be during June and July, where you can actually do some tests. As I said, you are free to propose almost anything you want. Obviously, as mentors, we're going to discuss it with you and tell you if the ideas are actually feasible. So you can always reach out to us and let us know your ideas. But I'll go a bit deeper into this in a minute. And then there's going to be a second stage. In this one, we're hoping to fund at least 5 projects. In this one, in stage 2, the best projects from stage 1 will make it to the final, let's say. And in these ones, we're going to do bigger trials. And ideally, we want you to do some short-term internships, either at IIT Indore or with some of the project partners in industry. Then towards the end, as part of the project, we are planning to organize a hybrid conference at IIT Indore. I'm hoping to be there by early September. So hopefully I get to see you face to face to all of you. So as I said before, essentially today we are doing the call for projects, and we as mentors, what we're looking for is ideally bold and commercially feasible ideas these are basically examples. Yeah, don't this is not set on stone, so you can actually think of other things if you want to. But we're basically trying to investigate what's happening in terms of low carbon binders. You can think of geopolymers, limestone, calcine, clay, cement, alkali activated materials, and so on. Circular economy as well. You can think of how to use construction and demolition waste, for instance. Industrial byproducts, think of fly ash, slags, other sort of wastes like agricultural waste, rice husk, hempcrete, and so on. We're also trying to fund teams that can look into carbon sequestration, how to cure with CO2, for instance, or how to inject carbon, for instance, in aggregates as well. We are also thinking of funding teams that can look into thermal efficiency, for instance, insulation materials or phase change materials. Those are materials that basically change depending on the temperature. When it's cold, they get hot. When it's hot, they essentially melt. And by doing that, they actually transfer the heat within walls and so on. Passive cooling systems as well, we're interested into that. And also the use of AI and machine learning, computational approaches, anything that can use computers to improve the processes or the materials that I mentioned in the points above. Now, again, these are just examples. If you have your own ideas, if there is anything you want to discuss, maybe even blue sky research, you can always get back to us. I'll give you our details later on towards the end, and we can discuss. We can even have a one-to-one call on Teams or Google Meet and see if your idea is actually feasible or not. So going a bit deeper into the details of stage one, again, this is the initial part of the project. Ideally what we want you to do is to submit proposals to us. As I said, we are trying to fund at least 5 proposals in stage one. Yeah. So the proposals should be limited to 2 pages of text and then 1 page of the Gantt chart where you show the timeline and the staggering of the activities you are planning to do. And in these 2 pages of text, what you have to describe is essentially these bullet points here. Initially, we want to know the net zero solution you are aiming for. We want a description of the material or the product, whether it's a new cement or a new wall with phase change materials. Just tell us what you want to produce, yeah, and how that product or that material has the potential to reduce the embodied carbon. Then we are trying to fund small teams, yeah. So ideally, let's say obviously we need at least 2 because otherwise it's not a team. We need between 2, maybe 6, 7, potentially up to 8. The main idea here is to list all the team members, taking into account a gender balance. But then you have to tell us why you are forming that particular team. Yeah, the different skill sets that everyone brings. Say, for instance, if one member is going to focus on the chemical aspects, maybe you can bring someone from chemistry. Doesn't have to be necessarily a civil engineer. You can bring from other areas, architecture, and so on. If somebody is going to focus on testing, maybe he or she has already some experience in the laboratory, so that would make sense. If somebody else has experience in LCA or economic analysis, they can join also the team, and that would be a good way to justify it. And essentially how the team complements each other. Another point you have to cover is clearly state the aim and the objectives. Yeah, what you are actually trying to achieve. What's the actual problem you want to solve? You can state maybe 2 or 3 objectives, ideally measurable, we are trying to reduce the, I don't know, the amount of CO2 by 10%, 20%, whatever it is. Then you need to describe a bit of the methodology, essentially how you're going to do the work. In stage one, what you can do is pilot tests, yeah, or computational calculations if need to be in that way. But you can do pilot tests and see if your idea is going to work later on when you try to scale it up. Mention also what sort of equipment or software you need. We have software at our universities that you can use, but obviously if it's something we don't really have, it's going to be hard and clearly a bit unfeasible. And if you are going to do some tests, just tell us where you want to do the tests. You also have to describe the expected outcomes and ideally tell us how the initial tests in stage one are going to be scaled up and ideally lead to a commercial product in stage two via further tests, work, analysis, and so on. So even when it's only the initial stage, we want you to already have in mind what's going to happen later on in stage two. And then you also need to give us a bit of an idea of the path towards commercialization. Who's going to who's going to be the end user of your product or your solution? Is it for consultants? Is it for builders and so on? Just give us an idea of how scalable it's going to be, and if there are any potential barriers to the market. Maybe if the product you're trying to produce is too expensive, it's going to be potentially unfeasible at the beginning. But then if there are ways to improve it, we can also look into that and help you as mentors. And then we also want you to give us an idea of the budget, how much money, because really we need to buy products and technician time and so on. So we need to have an idea of how expensive the product or the solution or the material you're trying to produce is going to be. In this case, the only thing I would also like to mention is that we have a bit of money to give you. So we have mini bursaries for reasonable material purchases, testing services, or if you need to travel somewhere nearby around Indore to get the products, we can potentially fund that as well. But we need to see the justification of the expenses, and obviously all this has to be approved by the mentors. So in terms of the evaluation and the subsequent stage two of the project, what we're expecting you is to provide a single PDF file with all the information I showed you in the previous slide, and to send it via email, either to Sanchit or to myself. I'll give you my email later on towards the end of the presentation. And just to give you an idea of the evaluation criteria we're going to use, we're going to follow essentially the same bullet points I showed you in the previous slide. Technical innovation, obviously that's going to be the most important item we're going to mark. Then management, sustainability, feasibility, market potential, and budget. All of them will have a certain weight. And we're also hoping to give you some feedback in your project, in your product, whatever you're trying to develop. I'll leave you the description here. I'll give you also these slides. I forgot to mention that. I'll distribute these slides later on through Sanchit. Now, as I said before, in the first stage, our idea is to fund at least 5 projects. The best feasible solutions based on these marking criteria will make it to the second stage, where you are going to get additional mentoring and small bursaries to try and scale up your solution to an actual commercial product, yeah, and to check if it's commercially and feasible, and if there is a market for that product. So this is going to be towards the end of the project. The main outcomes and what we expect at the end of towards the end of the project is to have those 2 finalist teams, ideally with a net zero product, something you can touch, whether it's a brick or a block or a little wall or something we can actually touch and see. I want to see it and touch it when I go to Indore, yeah? So keep that in mind. And then a scientific paper that you have to present in the conference to be organized at Indore. So one or two of you can actually come to the conference and present in front of us. And you can also get more skills by doing so, because obviously you're going to present in front of an international audience. Just to give you an idea of the timeline, this is basically the same activities I showed you before. The initial workshop is happening today, and this is the main reason for this presentation. The online training program, as I said before, this is going to be during May. We are going to upload the videos. I'll try to go to the website. Let me see if I can click that one. No, I can't, but I have it open. If I click on that link, which I'll distribute later on the slides, you will go to this website where you can see all the details of the projects, and there are actually photographs of us, and then you can see all we do as researchers. And then if you come here to activities, what you will find here is the webinars. First, the opening section, we're going to upload the video of today's presentation here, and then the webinars are going to be hosted here. Okay, so everything will be there. Even if you cannot catch up one day with the video, because it's going to be pre-recorded, then you can always come and watch it later on when you have time. Okay, so let me go. Oops, sorry. Where am I? There. So just keep an eye on the website, because most of the communication will be through that, the website, the official website of the project anyway. Now, in terms of the stages, stage one, which is the initial mini projects, we would need to get your mini proposals by the 29th of May latest. You can actually submit it earlier if you want, upon discussion with us, with the mentors. But the latest we would like to receive your proposal by is the 29th of May, please. Now, for instance, if you are dealing with concrete, if you are producing something that has concrete, you want to wait for 28 days, but due to the timeline of the project, you can actually test after 7 or 14 days after discussing with us what you're actually trying to develop in your mini project. After that, stage two, after we select the finalist teams, they would need to get the selection by the 15th of July. So this is where we are telling you, yeah, these are the two finalists, and after that, you can do additional trials and do some internships after agreeing with the industrial partners or with IIT Indore. And that's going to happen between July, August, potentially early September as well. So just to remind you and to highlight it, the two key dates, your first proposals by the 29th of May, that's where you have to describe what you want to do, the aim, objectives, the confirmation of the teams, the feasibility, the budget, and so on. So that's the 29th of May. And then after that, by the 15th of July, we'll tell you who's going to win, or who's not going to win, who are the finalists, teams that go and can do actually additional trials and the internships at the industrial partners. And eventually, as I said, we have the idea of forming the having this conference in early September. Now, we also got some projects from industry. These are very general projects. So the idea is just to show you more or less potential avenues of the sort of research and work you can do. But we would also need to scope the projects to something you can actually do within the timeline of the project. Again, if you have questions, you can always email Sanchit or myself, and we can discuss it further. But just to give an idea, you can think of, for instance, portable fly ash quality testing kits using Arduino, which is a software we use for controls mainly. You can think also of sludge-based bricks, considering the variability of the properties of the sludge. Air strength gaining bricks for faster production. Essentially, if you have to wait for your concrete to set for a few days, that's going to save you time in terms of construction, and obviously that's going to be money savings in money as well. Identification of waste for use in brick manufacturing, bio-waste-based bricks, for instance, as well, and other solutions here, for instance, thermal and insulation bricks. I think there is a huge potential here, both in the UK and India. In the UK, obviously, it's the cold weather during winter drops to negative temperatures. In India, it's completely the opposite. During the summer, you get to plus 40 degrees sometimes. So these are just examples that would need to be scoped so that you can have a project that you can actually do in a couple of months maximum. And with that, I conclude. Then, Javad, thank you very much to everyone for listening to us. Thank you also to the British Council for the funding. I will be happy to take a few questions if you have any at the moment. Otherwise, I leave you a couple of emails you can contact Sanchit or myself if you have any questions either now or later on. Thank you very much.